Hello and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I am your host, Laura Mignell. And this is part of my 29 Days of Magic series where I interview an awesome Black woman every single day, 29 straight days for Black History Month. And today I'm super delighted to have Kim Anthony, who's an author, speaker, and leadership coach, join me on the podcast. She has an incredible story and I can't wait for you to take a listen. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Likewise. I love when I randomly meet people and I'm like, hey, I have a thing. You want to do it? You're
Yeah,
like, yeah.
that's exactly how it happened, I
Exactly.
think. Hmm.
Like I said, I'm a very good salesperson slash cult leader.
Oh,
And
goodness. That's
it's,
kind of scary, Laura.
it's a talent. I know it's a gift. It's a
It's a
gift.
talent. It's a gift. Okay.
But I'm so delighted to have you on. First question is always the same. Answer is always awesome. Yours will probably be no different. So, Kim, what was your first job?
My first job, my first job was being a gymnastics coach. I did that at the age of 16. And also, when I think about it, my first job coming out of college was being a head coach of a gymnastics team. So I guess I was just sticking with what I know because I was a gymnast and competed at a high level.
I love how you're glossing over the fact that, like, I was just a gymnast when I competed at a high level. Could you rerun the tape a little bit and talk about your gymnastics career, ma'am?
Okay, so I started gymnastics back in the 70s when there were not very many gymnasts who looked like me. I'm a Black woman. And I ended up qualifying to be on the U.S. national team, competed around the world representing the U.S., winning gold medals. And then I went on to UCLA, where I became the first Black woman to earn a scholarship as a gymnast there. And I also became UCLA's first woman to win a national title, NCAA title. And then I found out just probably not too long ago, maybe 4, 5 years ago, that I also was the first Black woman gymnast to ever win an NCAA national title. So I was the first. And there have been many more since then, but I'm honored to even be in that category.
But you were the first, like, woman. I love how you
Yes.
skipped over that whole point.
Well,
But that was
yeah.
obviously pretty incredible and also pretty challenging. Like, how did you
Mm.
get involved with gymnastics in the 70s?
How did I get involved?
Yes.
Well, it started I was one of those kids who was always upside down anyway, standing on my head, flipping around, wherever I could, on fences, off fences, stairwells, anything, any place I could find where I could flip around. It was what I was doing. But then I watched the 1976 Olympics. Nadia Comaneci was the world champion, the Olympic champion then. And that's when I realized that all the flipping I was doing was a legitimate sport. So I began to do it all the more as a result of Nadia. And I lived on a busy city street, so I flipped, and we had a backyard, but it was just dirt. There was nothing, no grass or anything like that. And I would flip around in my grandmother's living room. And she kicked me out because I was knocking over lamps and tables and all kinds of things. But she wouldn't let me take the pillows with me that I was using to land on. So I had to be smart. I went out there on the brick sidewalks in front of my grandmother's house and I taught myself side aerials and all types of wonderful things that I could do. And my mother thought I was going to kill myself, literally. She thought I would bust my head open on the brick sidewalks. So she found a place for me to take a gymnastics class. I took the class, it was a recreational class, and I had never been on mats before. So I was on cloud nine, Laura. I was just blown away by all of this equipment. And during the class, I was on the high beam when I was supposed to be on the low beam. I was climbing on the high bar when I was supposed to be on the low bar. I kept getting in trouble over and over again. And at the end of this little 1 hour class, the coach called me over, and Laura, I thought I was going to get in trouble, and I thought he was going to tell me to never come back again because of how many times they had to get on me. And instead, he asked me where I had been training to do gymnastics. And I told him that,
My backyard?
I've never, yeah, I said, on my grandma's sidewalk. And he said, well, show me what you've taught yourself how to do. And so I showed him all the different things. And right then and there, he invited me to join the team, which meant that I could go to the gym 3 times a week and train. I didn't have a leotard, and my mother couldn't afford to purchase a leotard that day, but they gave it to us on loan until she could pay for it. I think it might have been either $8 or $12, something like that. But we came from a very challenging situation financially. We couldn't afford my lessons, so we had to be very creative to figure out ways to pay for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you ever try out for the Olympics?
I did. I competed in the 1984 Olympic trials. I was 16. And yeah, it was my first time trying out for the U.S. national team. And it was a phenomenal experience. I didn't have the greatest meet. And what happened, Laura, was they took the first 8 went to the Olympic Games. You have your alternates in there. And the second 8 went to South Africa. Okay, so this is 1984 during apartheid.
Archive. Whoa.
So I'm competing for the U.S. national team in South Africa, and the stories I could tell you are just wild. But it was an interesting experience because even though the Black South Africans were not allowed to watch our competition, I won the meet. I won the all-around title.
Wow.
And it was I just remember, I mean, it was clear what was going on there. And I do, my book is Unfavorable Odds, and I talk about it extensively in that there's a chapter on my experience in South Africa and all the things that I witnessed and all the things that they were trying to hide from us. But we were super sleuths and kind of
Figured it out.
yeah, we figured it out, and we met with people secretly on rooftops, stuff like that. So, I go into this country who definitely things were not, people who looked like me were not being treated fairly, just being wronged in so many ways. And I win the meet. And I remember when they announced my name, there was this big commotion. And I wasn't sure what was going on because I didn't know whether I was going to be attacked or, something bad or negative was going to happen. But basically, the crowd just all clamored in together, and there were lots of pictures, and it was just, yeah, it was a very memorable experience in that I realized that the freedoms that I experienced back in the U.S. at the time were more of a privilege than I had realized.
Wow. That's incredible. So you go from that unbelievable experience to coaching gymnastics to where we are
Mhm.
now, having this conversation.
Mhm.
What's the rest of this career journey been like? Because my goodness, what a start.
Oh my goodness. So, yeah, I have not taken a straight road anywhere, Laura. I have been zigzagging. But the thing is I was trying to figure out who I was, figure out, okay, who am I? What do I really like? Because you train in this one sport for so many years, and then you come out, you're like, okay, what else can I do? What am I interested in? I gave some thought, but not serious thought to that. So that's why I ended up coaching coming out because I just wasn't sure which direction I wanted to go. So here's what I did. I became a stunt woman in Hollywood, which was a natural transition. I was at UCLA and I had the opportunity. I was recruited to be in the movie Batman Returns to double Annette Bening, who was going to play Catwoman until she got pregnant and Michelle Pfeiffer took her place. But they still brought me on to train Michelle how to be cat-like and to do cartwheels and things like that. And I was in the movie doing other types of stunts. I loved that world because I I'm a person, it's weird that I have this public facing job now, but I had always been a person, I didn't like attention. I didn't want people to look at me. But as a stunt woman, I could perform and do all of these fun, amazing things, but I could walk the streets and no one would know who I was because I was behind the scenes. I got married and my husband's job took us to New York, New York City. And while I was there, I danced professionally. And then we moved again to the Midwest. I became a radio announcer. And then that turned into TV sports reporting. I did some work for ESPN covering gymnastics, and I've covered other sports as well, the NBA and women's basketball. And then I became a TV show host when I lived in Miami, Florida. And I loved it. That was my favorite part of television. I prefer to be in studio and interviewing people, doing what you're doing right now, Laura. That's so I love it. And then I remember I was hosting. I was actually covering an NBA game, and Charles Barkley did something that was hilarious, which is, he does that all the time. He's always saying something funny, and I reported about it from the courtside. And it was a great story. It was funny. I could hear my producer laughing in the truck, and I thought, wow, I added to the broadcast. It was, a fun little piece. And then when I went back to stand where I usually stood and watched the game, I thought to myself, it was like this thought came to mind. I don't know if it's me, if it was God or what, but this thought came to mind. What does it matter what Charles Barkley just said, and how in the world is that helping anybody? And up
Mm.
until that moment, Laura, I thought I was living my dream. I had access to these athletes, the coaches. I had, all access. And I was, doing television and interviewing people, and it was fun. But then I realized that I wanted to use my voice to do more than just entertain people. I really wanted to use my voice to change lives. And that's when I began to allow myself to think about other opportunities. And eventually opportunities came my way. And what I did is went into ministry with my husband for 20 years, helping pro athletes, executives, and their spouses with spiritual and personal growth. And I was able to use my voice to speak into the lives of these individuals who sometimes were hurting, sometimes who didn't have other people they could talk to because of the platforms they were on. There were a lot of people that they couldn't trust, but they could come to us and talk about those deeper things. And they knew that it wasn't going to get leaked to the press or anything like that. And as I started to work in this realm, I realized that there were women in this space and women everywhere, really, but in this particular space who were wrestling with identity. So you are married to this pro athlete, or you're married to this coach, or you're an athlete yourself, and who are you outside of those things? Do I have an identity apart from my husband, apart from this sport I compete in? And the answer is yes, you do. You're not what you do, you are who God designed you to be. So I was able to study and learn about the intricacies of identity and how do I help people to walk in the fullness of who they were designed to be. So that was the path that I went through. And that is pretty much what led to what I do now.
Wow, that's incredible. And again, lots of twists, lots of turns.
Lots of
Well,
turns.
and so, in helping those athletes and their spouses, what was some of the things that or were like the biggest things that you found?
Let's see. One of the biggest things I found that was prevalent back in that day, and it could still be there. I still work with in the pro world, but with different sets of people. And one of the things that I realized were that there were women who were married to these pro athletes or executives who had lost who they were. And it wasn't because they didn't have value, but it was because of their husbands' careers, they had to give up their own. You have women with master's degrees or who were planning to be doctors or lawyers and were on their way and could very well do that at any moment, but they chose to sacrifice so that they could be with their husbands and their families could be together as they moved from team to team. But there's a certain toll that that takes because imagine, and I was in this situation. My husband played ball for just a smidgen, a little short while. But imagine being out with your husband and your family and people clamoring over him and literally pushing you aside into the corner and not even acknowledging your presence. When that happens to a woman time and time again, it gets old, yes, but it also can have an effect if you are not truly grounded in the fact that you innately have value and purpose outside of all of this glamour world, then that can mess with you. And so one of the first studies I did with the wives, it was called Who Am I? I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And we spent that entire season focusing on all of the wonderful attributes these women had and they could bring to the table. So not only could they bring it to their families, to their husbands, but bring it to the community they were serving. I truly believe that when women are walking in their authentic identity, they have clarity on their purpose and they have built the resilience they need to withstand those challenging times. I believe that we would have more fulfilling and purposeful lives and we can have greater impact. So that was my focus. I wanted to see, I just love seeing women thrive, Laura. I love seeing women walk in the fullness of their purpose. It gives me no greater joy. I mean, I can't think of anything that gives me greater joy outside of my family, right? But that is what I love and adore. And it's been an honor to serve these women in this way, to be an encourager for them, to help them to realize things about themselves that they hadn't even known, and to even help them to discover those obstacles that stand in the way of them finding their identity or them embracing their purpose.
Wow. So clearly you've had a wealth of experiences around this. What do you think when you've had a challenge, where you're like, there's
Hmm.
no way I'm getting through this, and then you did?
Hmm. I think, gosh, I think probably I would take you back to when I was a gymnast, when I was young, because the odds were completely stacked against me. So I'm competing or I'm wanting to compete in this elite sport where it takes a lot of money to do that because it's very expensive to train. But I'm coming from this low income household. So literally, Laura, I'm living in two different worlds. At home, there's barely food in the refrigerator. We don't have a car. My mom is commuting 2 hours on a bus back and forth to work. She's working three jobs. One of those jobs is cleaning the 20,000 square foot gym at night after practice. She and I would go in and scrub toilets and floors and make sure the gym was spotless for the next day. And on the other hand, I would be traveling the world, staying in five-star hotels, eating in five-star restaurants, paparazzi, police escorts, all kinds of things. But then I would come back home again to an empty living room because we couldn't afford furniture. And we would get eviction notices time and time again because my mother could not afford to keep a roof over our head. And she would cry herself to sleep because she wasn't sure how she was going to keep food on the table. And there were times when she didn't eat. She told me she was not hungry, but as an adult, I look back now and I think there wasn't enough food for the both of us. So coming through that and when my father was in our lives, there it was very challenging. There was, he was abusive in ways and it was very difficult. And there were times when I thought that I would never make it through. There were times when I didn't even know. I would go to gym, I would go to practice because that was the only thing I could control in my world. My body flipping twice in the air, twisting and doing, whatever I could do with my body as a gymnast was the only thing in my life that I could control. And honestly, I never thought that period of my life would end, Laura. It was so, so hard. And I cried all the time. And I would just make it through school. It was hard to make it through school because I was so tired. I would be going on 4 hours of sleep. I'd have 17-hour days because I trained 6 hours a day. Then I had to clean the gym with my mom and then go to school and do homework. It was hard. But I was so thankful that I had a mother who persevered. And she was the most positive woman I have ever met in my entire life. And she encouraged me and she wanted me to be optimistic. She would tell me that this is not all our life is going to be. And she encouraged me to no end. And she is the one who taught me how to tap into that resilience and how to build resilience over time so that I could overcome those insane challenges that we faced.
And that's incredible. And thank you so much for sharing that. 'Cause I think there are folks who may be going through similar things, and to hear
Hmm.
that it is possible, you
Yes,
find a way
yes.
through,
Hmm.
not over through it, and that will just make a huge impact. So thank you so much for sharing
Hmm.
that
Oh,
part
you're welcome. You're welcome.
of your journey. And now to something a little bit more happy.
Happy thoughts.
What does Kim do for Kim? What do you do for your self-care?
Ooh, self-care. I have had to learn the hard way that setting boundaries is what I need to care for myself in this phase of life. And so the way I do that is by filtering all the opportunities that I get through my identity and my purpose. So if it doesn't fit who I am and what I believe I've been put on this earth to do, then I respectfully decline. Now, do I do this perfectly every time? Nope, because I have a heart, Laura. I love to help people. If there's something I can do to be of benefit to someone else, it's really challenging for me to say no. But I've had to learn to do that because I can't possibly be of benefit to everyone and every cause because there's only one me and there's only a certain amount of time that we've each been given. Unfortunately, last year I did not exercise my boundaries well. And I said yes to a lot of shiny, beautiful, wonderful things that were good, but I did it and it kept me from focusing on what was best. And if I'm focusing on what's best, which fits my identity, my purpose for that season of life, then I will be able to handle it. I will have the capacity and the energy to do that. And I think I will have an even greater impact than spreading myself thin all over the place. So, yeah, I care for myself by setting boundaries. So, here's my ideal day: 5 in the morning, I wake up, I work out, I have a quiet time, I meditate, I read the Bible and grow in that way. And I listen to audiobooks that add value to my life and are encouraging and inspiring. And so I start my day in control and not allowing emails or text messages to just derail me. I do not go on to social media and emails until 11 a.m. And I have someone helping me so that if something comes through that's urgent, she'll get that to me. But I will keep that space so that I can be creative and I can focus without interruption. And I found that when I do this, Laura, that I have more energy, I have more bandwidth to be nice to people instead of cranky, stanky, right? And yeah, so I think the boundaries thing is huge for me.
It really is. It's like you can't be Superwoman. You're not from Krypton. And yet, no matter what anyone tells you, you did not land here, and a glowing green rock is not yours, is not the thing that's going to take away all your power.
Right,
So you
right.
kind of have to do that for yourself. And
Hmm.
that's so important and so necessary for folks to understand. And yeah,
Yeah,
boundaries are a form of self-care where it's like,
it's
I'm
huge.
not going to do this.
Hmm.
And
But I
think
wasn't,
I have to learn
yeah.
that too.
Yeah, and you're right. And I didn't always know that. And I think when you come from a background like mine, because part of my background was I was so desperate to earn the love and acceptance of people, the people around me, whether it was my dad or my cousins or whoever. I just wanted to earn love. My mother gave me that love, but I wanted to, earn it from other people. So when you grow up with that type of mindset, then usually you're going to be this people pleaser trying to earn love and acceptance from the different people you meet around the world. And it's hard to say no. But one of the key things, I will say this just came to mind. that we are better able to set healthy boundaries for ourselves when we already have a crew. We already have those safe people in our lives that we can go to when things get tough, when we need to process, what's going on in our lives. But if we don't have that group of safe people in our lives, then we are more likely to not set those healthy boundaries because we're so wanting to be loved and accepted by others.
Look at you just out here preaching a sermon, Kim. Really?
Oh,
Oh my
well,
goodness, girl. But so very, very true.
mhm.
Looking back on all the really amazing things that you've done and all the things that you've overcome, what do you think you'd tell 18-year-old Kim?
Ooh, I would tell 18-year-old Kim that you were not a mistake. I would tell her that you have value, that you have a place in this world. And if you would just step into the fullness of who you are, you can have a great impact.
Amen. See more sermons, Kim. Come on. Yeah.
I'm not trying. I'm not trying to do that, Laura,
We're
but
gonna start
yeah.
snapping, so we're
Uh,
gonna do it all.
you're too
It's
funny.
it's beautiful, and it's not much more
Mm,
you can say. That's it's
uh,
absolutely beautiful. Um,
thank you.
Now, do you have a give and an ask of the audience?
Mhm. Okay. A give or a ask. I think since I love, love, love seeing women succeed in what they're most passionate about and gifted to do, I would ask your audience to please stay true to who you are everywhere you go. I mean, we can be mediocre by trying to be somebody else, or you can be excellent by being authentically yourself. And so I just ask them to confidently step into their purpose and be the fullness of who they are.
Love that, and absolutely love that. Uh,
Thank you.
and now a last question for you, and I thought this is gonna be another sermon, but here we go. Uh,
Uh-oh. Oh,
what's one thing that brings you joy?
oh, one thing that brings me joy. I have two adult sons. They are 27 and 29. And the fact that my sons love us brings me absolute joy. I hear stories about families not getting along, siblings not getting along, or sons not wanting to have anything to do with their parents or daughters, and to know that my family, the four of us, actually love each other and enjoy being together brings so much joy to my heart. It really does.
I love that. Absolutely love that. You've just been, oh my gosh, Kim, I knew you'd be amazing, but my goodness, Lord. I could just keep chatting with you for hours on end,
Oh,
but your story of resilience, of just stick to itiveness and of
mm,
grace and of glory are so wonderfully powerful. And I'm sure folks are going to have such an amazing time listening to you and taking your
thank
words to
you.
heart. 'Cause I know I did. And
Oh,
so I can't
thank you
thank
so
you
much.
enough for joining me on 29 Days of Magic. God puts people in your path for a reason. And like I just
Hmm.
bumped into you at that event.
Yes.
And we
Hmm.
started chatting, and it's been such a delight to get to know and hear more about you. So thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic.
And Laura, thank you for blessing me to be a part of it. I am truly honored that you would even be interested in my story and the things that I've had to share. And what you're doing is absolutely amazing. Please don't stop.
I thank you so much. And I eventually have to stop because I can't keep talking to people 29 days. But but
Oh my
as you
goodness.
can probably guess from we have more than 29 interviews. But it's just been a wonderful delight. And we'll put details in the show notes for folks to connect with you and
Okay.
more about what you're up to and follow you on all the social platforms and the like. And yes, just thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic.
Such an honor.
that is our show.